On August 8, 2023, wildfires fueled by hurricane winds ravaged West Maui, devastating the historic town of Lahaina. In the wake of devastating wildfires in Hawaii, FEMA swiftly mobilized to provide critical support to affected communities. Over 300 FEMA employees, including 140 search and rescue team members, were deployed to assist in the recovery efforts. FEMA set up temporary shelters and provided transitional sheltering assistance, offering short-term housing solutions for those displaced by the fires. Critical needs assistance was made available, ensuring survivors had access to essential items such as water, food, and medicines. FEMA encouraged residents to register for disaster assistance, with over 3,000 valid registrations received. Assistance was available online, via phone, and in person at shelters. FEMA continues to work closely with state, local, and private entities to develop long-term housing solutions and ensure recovery efforts are culturally sensitive and inclusive. Through coordinated efforts, FEMA and its partners are committed to helping Hawaii recover and rebuild stronger than before. Despite warnings of high fire risk due to drought conditions, emergency preparedness measures were insufficient. Many residents reported a lack of timely evacuation orders and inadequate communication from emergency management officials. FEMA's response was criticized for being slow and disorganized, with survivors waiting days for essential aid. Initial aid provided by FEMA was deemed insufficient, with many survivors receiving only a one-time payment of $700, which barely covered immediate needs. Amid growing criticism, Hawaii's governor ordered an official review of the response, highlighting the need for accountability and improved disaster management. As recovery efforts continue, there is a renewed focus on ensuring that such negligence does not occur in the future disasters. Hurricane Helene began as a tropical storm in the northwestern Caribbean Sea on September 24, 2024. It quickly intensified as it moved into the Gulf of Mexico. By September 25th, Helene had strengthened into a Category 3 hurricane, with winds exceeding 120 miles per hour. It made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region on the evening of September 26th as a powerful Category 4 hurricane, bringing catastrophic storm surge and wind damage. Helene's impact was felt across multiple states, including Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. The storm caused widespread flooding, power outages, and significant structural damage. In the days following the storm, the death toll rose to over 120, with many more missing and thousands displaced with their homes, with numbers continuing to rise. On September 27th, FEMA began deploying resources to the hardest hit areas. Over 3,200 FEMA staff and federal partners were mobilized to assist with search and rescue operations, provide emergency supplies, and support recovery efforts. FEMA's disaster survivor assistance teams were on the ground in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina, helping survivors register for aid and distributing essential items like food, water, and tarps. While others say they have seen many not getting help, supplies, or even rescue. The coordinated efforts of local, state, and federal agencies, along with volunteers and the National Guard, have been vital in addressing the immediate needs of those affected by Hurricane Helene. In the immediate aftermath, civilian pilots played a critical role in delivering supplies to isolated areas. However, as FEMA's operations started, there were reports of civilian pilots being asked to stand down to streamline the coordination of airspace and ensure safety, and some even being threatened with arrest.
Lake Lure. The cries for help from people stranded without food, water, or electricity hit social media soon after the flooding last Friday.
But my parents are stuck there, so Their address is Banner Elk. They are in the first condo. If you receive this, please give me a call back. Thank you.
Sidham's phone started lighting up on Saturday with people begging for help.
I could hear the desperation in her voice. This is multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages, and you could hear people desperate for help.
Sidham and his son rescued 4 people on Saturday and spent the night in a nearby pilot's lounge, then decided to fly again Sunday morning.
I spoke with my son, which is my co-pilot. I said, hey, do you want to go back out and try to help today? And his response was, there's so many messages, I don't think we can't not go help.
Sidham and his son were headed up to Black Mountain. Flight tracking shows no flight restrictions in place Saturday or Sunday morning when Sidham flew through the Lake Lure Gap. But that was all about to change. The Sidhams spotted an older couple waving for help, then landed in what's left of their driveway.
Hey, I want you to let me get in. You step out and go out, help her in, put her bag in the back, get her strapped in. I'm going to take her down, come back. I'll take him, I'll come back, and then I'll get you, okay?
I originally left my son, co-pilot, on the side of the mountain. It was kind of unstable, so I didn't want to put more weight in the helicopter to lift back off. So I left my son with the other victim, and I was just going to take one person down at the time. And you could hear me in the video talking through with the victims and with my son what we were going to do.
3 minutes away, Sidham spotted a group of rescuers just down the river. He landed and found someone in charge.
Told him my background experience, law enforcement, firefighting, pilot. He immediately started helping with coordination. He gave me radio frequencies to coordinate with them on, set up a landing area for me to come back with the other victim. And in the middle of the whole conversation and then blocking the road off, I was greeted by the, at that time I didn't know, but Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief maybe, and he shut down the whole operation. So at that point I felt like the conversation wasn't going any further. And again, he asked me to leave, and I said, hey, I have no problem getting out of your area. If that's what you want us to do, we'll leave, no issue. At that point, I asked him, what was the reason I had to leave them there, and he said, again, you're interfering with my operation. I just need you to get out of the area. I said, sir, I don't know where you were trained at, but I know how my training is, and I'm not going to leave personnel behind. I'm going back to get my co-pilot. He said, if you turn around and go back up the mountain, you're going to be arrested. I said, well, sir, I'm going back to get my co-pilot. I don't know what to tell you. And he said, I'm letting you know. And at that point, he waved for 2 law enforcement officers to come over and told me that again, if I go back up the mountain, I would be arrested.
He flew the 3-minute trip back, picked up his son, and left the woman's husband behind.
I'm sure he was flooded with emotions and trying to rescue other people, and I just felt that it was best at the time to leave. So I did follow his instructions, and I had a conversation with the female victim before I left, apologized and explained, and she was standing there. She heard the whole conversation. And they were both very, very surprised, very upset. The husband, as I was leaving off of the side of the mountain, at that point, separated from his wife, he was upset. I can only imagine.
Sidham and his nearly 1,400 flight hours turned his chopper around and headed back to South Carolina, passing people waving for help along the way.
As I was actually leaving to go back to get my son, the original chief or captain that I spoke to, his crew and himself, they came back over and said, hey man, we can't tell you to go get the victim. We can't even ask you to go get the victim, but we can tell you if you come back with the victim, we'll have you a designated landing spot, and we'll make sure they don't come over here.
As recovery efforts continue, the resilience and strength of the affected communities remain evident. My thoughts are with everyone in both these horrible tragedies. As of recording this, FEMA has been a raging topic on Twitter. Let's get to the posts from the people of Twitter. Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this video are solely those of the individuals who tweeted them. They do not reflect my own views or opinions. I'm not taking any political stance. I'm merely presenting the tweets I saw as I scrolled through them. America First Legal says, Mayorkas complains FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season. Kamala announces victims of Hurricane Helene will get only $750. Meanwhile, FEMA spent over $1 billion in taxpayer dollars on providing housing and services to illegal aliens. RGAR 152.0 says, America is coming to western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, from Texas to Florida and from across the nation. If the government fails to mobilize, Americans won't sit back and watch. They'll act. To hell with FEMA. Neighbors helping neighbors. Glenn Beck says, how is the U.S. government running out of money for Hurricane Helene victims? They were able to find $63.1 billion and counting for Ukraine. FEMA spent over $1 billion on illegal immigrants, but the Americans in Appalachia, $750. This is an insult. Jake Shields says, why are we sending all our money overseas when this is happening in America?
My car's gone.
Okay, it's okay.
Everything's gone. It's all gone.
Alright guys, just to give you an understanding of the devastation we're dealing with here. Cinder Rock's gone. Flying Ridge is gone. And the fucking road's gone.
Shadow of Ezra says, FEMA has ceased all relief operations and is now seizing supplies and donations from citizens trying to assist Hurricane Helene victims across various states, causing growing alarm and unrest. Kylie Jane Kramer says, FEMA failure in the Southeast. I was just alerted by friends in Greensville, South Carolina, that there is a massive failure by FEMA to deploy assets to assist those impacted by Hurricane Helene, and they are feeling beyond frustrated and angry. FEMA has 12 medevac EC-135 helicopters just sitting there in Greenville. FEMA has 3 C-130 cargo planes just sitting there in Greenville. FEMA also has fuel tankers, ambulances, and other equipment ready to deploy sitting in Greenville, as seen in the video attached. These planes, helicopters, and other equipment have been sitting since Sunday and have not doing anything for Americans in need. Our tax dollars not being utilized even though they are appropriated for specific situations of emergency just like this. What the hell is going on? What exactly is FEMA doing besides promising a measly $750 to those affected by Helene? $941 million have been given to illegals, and now DHS Secretary Mayorkas is asking for more money for FEMA because there isn't enough to help Americans. What about these resources just sitting in Greenville? Why aren't they being deployed? People are dying in desperate need of help. Fellow Americans aren't even allowed to help because of red tape, and money we've already paid in taxes isn't going to help them either. The Biden-Harris administration is massively failing, and it's clear American citizens are not a priority. DC underscore Drano says, "This is Walmart in Asheville, North Carolina. Empty shelves, long lines, and FEMA is barely helping because they're low on money after spending nearly $1 billion on housing illegal aliens. Americans aren't going to tolerate this much longer." Tony TM says, "Unbelievable. She's from Western North Carolina, and everyone she knows, including herself, has been denied the $750 FEMA check. Why is FEMA denying people who are in need? This is insane."
Hey guys, for those that don't know, I'm at the foothills of the Western North Carolina mountains, and everybody in my area that I've talked to, including myself, who applied for the $750 assistance payment from FEMA, has been denied. Okay? Yeah. They've denied us. Okay. So here we sit. We've thrown out all of our food because we had no power for 5-6 days. Some still are without power. Here we sit. Limited resources in the store. And they have denied our $750 resource check. So, yeah. How do you like that?
Charlie Kirk says, "Representative Corey Mills is in North Carolina trying to rescue Americans. He claims FEMA is largely MIA because it has diverted resources for immigration resettlement. Quote, so that's really where the missing piece is, the federal piece. Let's go ahead and point out the obvious. FEMA has utilized a large majority of the personnel who should be here taking care of this to be replaced or repurposed for immigration resettlement when we need to be focused on Americans," end quote. There's over 170 dead Americans and over 1,000 still missing. This is totally unacceptable tragedy. Ashley St. Clair says, "Just so we're clear, the Biden-Harris administration said there's no more FEMA money for hurricane victims because we spent $640 million on illegal migrants. And if you dare try and help your fellow dying Americans, you will go to jail. America cannot take another 4 years of this." Colin Rugg says, "Report, the death toll from Hurricane Helene has surpassed 200 as FEMA announces they do not have the funds to help Americans make it through hurricane season. This is due to the fact that $640.9 million in FEMA-administered funds have been spent on illegal immigrants. A new report also claims FEMA is failing to deploy assets, including 12 medevac helicopters that are just sitting in Greenville, South Carolina, as reported by Kylie Jane Kremer. Unconfirmed reports say the death toll is much higher than 200, already used over 500 body bags, and there are bodies in trees, mud, cars, houses, everywhere. No Fed support whatsoever," a law enforcement official told John Rich. Locals and Good Samaritans are doing all they can to help, but are failing to receive the government assistance they need. The government's failure to provide the necessary assistance could also impact the election in North Carolina, which is just a month away. Patriot Takes says, "There are 35 Republican senators that voted to defund FEMA in 2021. Insurrection Barbie says, "FEMA is only giving $750 per household. If you don't have homeowners insurance and if you qualify based on income. Why pay taxes so Democrats can import voters?" Ark McDougald says, "Are you fucking kidding me? FEMA spent $640 million on illegal immigrants this year, and now it has no money for disaster relief." American Archer says, "Emergency announcement. I am enraged. Our government, FEMA, and TEMA have officially declared that our region, which has been devastated by flooding from Hurricane Helene is screwed. I have had nearly a dozen people tell me that they should only take donations to churches. Why? Because they are confiscating the donations and doing God knows what with them. I'm about to dig deep into the underbelly of this. Why else would the federal government completely avoid referencing us other than there being an ulterior motive? If you would like to donate to somewhere that you actually know for a fact that the money is going to the poor souls who have lost everything in East Tennessee, the GoFundMe link is in the replies. Emily Jashinsky says, former FEMA administrator Craig Fugit just walked off MSNBC. I don't have time to listen to bullshit, people.
Believe it or not, we have masks. We have a lot of these things. Guess where they are? They're sitting in the supply chain. People are profiteering off of them, or they're going to places where people are hoarding them. Now, that happens in a crisis. It's only by someone looking through the entire system and seeing where those needs are that you can say, stop hoarding them all in Texas. We need them in New York right now while we build manufacturing capability and put them in Texas. So what your other guest is suggesting here is not helpful. We need a great partnership between the federal and state government.
Bullshit people.
Craig, you want to sit down and respond to this? I guess Craig has left.